Donald Trump is handing over more power to the police. Now, yesterday, the president signed 3 different executive orders dealing with the general issue of public safety. Now, one of the executive orders seeks to define new federal crimes and increase penalties for existing federal crimes in order to prevent, quote, violence against state and federal police. Now, look, there seems to be a bit of a problem here. You see, when you do violence against a police officer, which is already wrong and I don't recommend it, well, it's already illegal. You already have very stiff penalties for doing violence on a police officer. Even when it comes to resisting arrest, that is still very harshly punished. Now, again, this will add additional penalties onto people who are already considered to be committing a crime, which, ironically, makes the police an extra protected class of people. That doesn't seem to make sense, especially since Republicans tend to be like, no, we're not going to make LGBT folks. They already have protections on them. Why should we make them a protected class? Ooh, when it comes to police, protected. We got to protect the police. We got to protect the police. But isn't there a war on police officers? I mean, so many people, so many police officers have been getting killed lately. There's got to be a war on police officers, right? Well, okay. So let's break that down. Now, while 2016 was a particularly bad year for violence against police officers, and you can't really discount that. In fact, you had a total of 135 officers that were killed in the U.S., which is a 5-year high according to the report from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. But wait, when you break that down, that number is not quite what it seems. In fact, actually around half of them, 64 officers, were fatally killed on the job in acts of violence. Now, 21 were killed in an ambush-style attack, and the number also includes traffic accidents and job-related health issues. For example, if you have a heart attack while you're at work. Okay, so now you had 64 officers that were killed in the job and shootings, stabbings, and things like that. Now, of course, every one of those is an absolute tragedy. Nobody wants the police to be killed. But when you think about it, when you put the numbers in, we have tens of thousands of police officers in America that are working right now. And 64, while it is a tragedy that there are that many, it's actually a pretty low number. And this, of course, is in the middle of a 5-year high on police officer deaths. So, and especially if you compare it to the number of people who had died from police brutality. Now, let me get to the numbers on that. Now, there are actually about 968 deaths last year caused by police, according to the Washington Post, and more than 130 people have been killed so far in 2017, according to a database called killedbypolice.net. Now, again, I have to note, I don't want any police killed on duty. Of course, I do respect the police, and I do want them to be safe on the job, as safe as they can be. But I also want regular people to be protected. I don't want regular people being killed by police. So I think that, like, giving them an extra, a protected status, I should say, as if they're a besieged minority, just seems to be the wrong thing to do. No, what you have to do, and I've talked about this all the time, is you actually have to change the training of police. You have to change it from a we're at war mindset to a we're here to protect you mindset. But anyway, now, when it comes to violence against the police, again, while at a 5-year high, it is actually still low historically. Now, I have a graph for you. The last few administrations, going back to the 1980s, to show the reduction in the amount of police deaths on duty to violence. Now, take a look at this. All right, so, and look, and this is showing under the Obama administration. Obviously, you had it going back several different administrations. Now, it goes up in 2016, obviously, and I already gave you those numbers. But what this shows is that essentially it is safer now for police than it was under Ronald Reagan. That's amazing. Okay? And shootings, shootings and violence towards police in the 1980s, 101 fatalities. And this, of course, is assaults, bombings, stabbings, gunfire, and vehicular assault. As you can see, it's at a low, and 64 is the numbers that it is in 2016. So, man, when it comes to police killings, though there is no war on police, it's made up. Whereas, of course, shootings by police officers to innocent civilians or people who might be under arrest or resisting arrest, things like that, in situations where you could have had some de-escalation, you don't really see that. And instead, deadly force happens to be a little bit more prevalent than it is today. Now, there's another one of the orders, and this is an order to create a task force to go after illegal immigration, drug trafficking, and violent crime. Okay. Well, look, I can understand their need to want to go after those things. For example, drug trafficking and violent crime. Yeah, I actually do want to do something about that. Great. But let's talk about immigration for a minute. Now, let's talk about the fact that there are more people from Mexico that happen to be leaving the United States and coming into the country. These people are, ironically, these people are self-deporting. Okay? And look, what's ironic about this is if you build that wall, you're going to be keeping a lot of these people who are leaving, you're going to keep them in the country. Ironic. And look, that's not even keeping the bad ones out. Because there are tunnels, there are airplanes, there are even drug cannons. Oh, you don't have to sneak across the border and develop cantaloupe calves. No, all you can do is create a makeshift cannon and shoot your drugs across the border. I know, there is a story on it in the Huffington Post. It's amazing. And look, you've got narco submarines. I mean, look, man, these people are going to find a way to get across the border to get their drugs across the border. Building a wall is not really going to do anything. Not only that, but there are a lot of ports of entry into the United States other than just Mexico. You could get around the wall, especially if you have a submarine. So, and look, so that's on immigration, right? And even related to drug policy. Well, if you really want to get rid of drug trafficking, and I hope you do, because that would be a great thing. I would love to get rid of it. I got an idea. It's a radical idea. Might make your head explode. Decriminalize drugs. No, we can't decriminalize. That means everybody's going to do it. No, it actually doesn't. They decriminalized drugs in Portugal, and the use of drug rate went down. But hey, you know, those are just facts. You can ignore them if you want, I guess. And look, when it comes to drugs, people are going to do them whether or not it's legal. In fact, if it's illegal, it actually strengthens the drug cartels. Because, look, people will pay more to get this drug if it's illegal. They can get their hands on it. It does not get rid of demand. In fact, it makes the black market, as I said, and the drug cartels much, much more lucrative. Now, let me give you an example of how legalization and decriminalization actually work. When Colorado and Washington legalized marijuana, it hurt the cartels. They ended up losing a lot of funding. And now, ironically, there are reports of American weed being smuggled into Mexico. Not the other way around. Not Mexican weed coming into America. No. American weed being smuggled into Mexico. Because Mexico still has a prohibition on drugs. Amazing. But look, again, when it comes to Sessions, I don't really see him or the Trump administration going in a legalization direction, or at least a decriminalization direction. So, now one more thing. Sessions also told reporters that the U.S. has a giant crime problem. He said, quote, "I wish the rise that we're seeing in crime in America were some sort of aberration or blip. My best judgment, having been involved in criminal law enforcement for many years, is that this is a dangerous, permanent trend that puts the health and safety of America at risk." I wish it were some sort of aberration or blip. Well, it's neither, because it doesn't exist. What he's actually doing is he's lying about the crime rate. There is crime. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, there's still a lot of crime in America. But to say that it's higher, the rise in crime is so much higher than it was before is false. It's more alternative facts. In fact, despite the slight rise in crime over the past 2 years, it has gone down significantly over several decades, and the crime rate is actually much lower than it was in the 1980s and the 1990s. And also, when it comes to the murder rate is half of what it was back in the 1980s. Murders are the lowest they've been in the lowest they've ever been in decades. Decades. What they're trying to do is they're trying to scare the crap out of people. Now, gee, I wonder why they'd be wanting to do that. Look, you thought the police state was bad under President Obama, and I've railed against it. But man, I have a personal feeling, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're going to see it get much, much worse under Donald Trump. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.